Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop, and this week I'm going to be attempting to make a recharging station for my drill batteries. Roll the intro. So the first thing I did on the project was lay out all of the charges that I wanted to put into the charging station. So I opened my box, which is how I'm storing them now, hence another reason for wanting to upgrade the storage. And I just laid them out in the configuration I want. I didn't realise when I recorded this, I only laid out 4 charges, and actually when I came to put it together, I actually slipped another one in. There were actually 5 in the end. So then I got a piece of wood. This piece of wood is just a piece of, it looks like very thin MDF. I laid them all out, got a border around the edge so I knew roughly what limit to stay in, although I didn't use that border in the end, to be honest. So when I'd done that, I laid them all out exactly as I wanted them to be. Took a little bit of rejiggling to use the space effectively, and as you can see here, I started with the DeWalt one, which is the biggest one, and I drew around that. I actually ended up shifting this because I'd used up too much space. It was going to be too wide and it just didn't need to be. So after a little bit of fiddling around, I got it to the layout that I wanted. Apology for slightly blocking the camera here. I'm using a new digital SLR and I'm not 100% yet on where its angle of filming is. So I took out the line I didn't need, took it over to the miter saw, put up a stop block so I could make sure I could do this through and through cut, and then I'd cut another piece exactly the same size, and this is going to be the shelf that the batteries are actually going to sit on, and this is the sort of bit that goes on and holds them in place. Then drilled some holes, got out the jigsaw and just cut all the way around the holes. Now, when I finished the project, I did realise that obviously I knew, because I'd drawn around the bottom, the base, that these are obviously not going to be 100% the right size. But what I didn't do when I actually drew them around, I laid the pencil against the outside sort of contour. I didn't actually angle the pencil under to get the actual base. So as you can see on the DeWalt one in the video there, it sort of bulges out at the middle, and that's the bit I ended up doing, which meant that all of the holes were just slightly too big. But as it turned out, that wasn't an issue, because when I'd fixed them in place with the wooden stops that you'll see in a minute, they actually fitted really well, and they're not moving. Like, if you turned it upside down, obviously they'd all fall out. But I didn't attach them with double-sided tape or Velcro tape, which I might do. I'm going to see how it goes, really, but that was the other option that I considered, but for this I didn't. And as you can see, they all fit nicely. They all slotted in, all the batteries slotted in when I cut the template out. I was really careful to do this. I wanted to get the exact, shape perfectly. So the next stage was just to cut some sort of edges. Apologies for blocking the camera a bit here. Like I said, I haven't quite got used to using that camera yet. So I'm just cutting individual, they look a bit like sticks really. It's just a sort of border for the batteries, and it's just going to hold the batteries in place and stop them sliding. And I'm not stuck them completely against the batteries, just sort of big enough. So what I did here was I used each of the cut pieces to get, as you can see, the rough shape. I put some PVA wood glue on them, and I also just dabbed on some super strength super glue, CVA glue, and that helped to hold it rather than having to clamp it and all that sort of thing, because I'll be there forever. But once I'd got them all stuck in, it was a little bit difficult in places where sort of wood was bordering wood, but it wasn't too much of an issue. And eventually, when I got them all stuck, all ready, I just popped the whole thing on its head and then loaded up some wood and a pack of bottles of water just to sort of weight it down and help the glue to stay stuck or while it was sticking. I then cut the bits that were the side, were going to be the sides of the unit, and I then just used a piece of OSB to cut the bottom. My saw wouldn't go all the way through, so I just finished it off a little bit with a pull saw. When that was exactly the right size, I just offered it up and it matched the other two pieces, the other two templates that I'd cut perfectly. I then went on to using my router table attachment to my table saw. I have got a video on this, which I'll put a link up in the corner. Now this was this was very straightforward and actually produced some really, really good lines. I was very pleased, but I also had a bit of a disaster here, which I'll show you in a minute in a bit more detail. But I put in 2 sets of grooves, obviously. The first set of grooves, which was for the shelf the batteries would sit on, and the second set of grooves is for the cutout template that would sort of hold them in place. Now, if you look very carefully, if you just keep your eyes on the actual router at the bottom, you'll see exactly what goes on. So just as I do that final pass through, that final run through, just watch the router and you'll see what happens. You see it comes unclipped and then it falls off, or it looks like it falls out the bottom. So I'm going to go a bit Hollywood here, a little bit of a split screen. As you can see, as it snaps, as it comes out, it snaps the actual plastic guard, which unfortunately has ruined it. If you've been watching the videos on the Garage Workshop, you'll have seen this video I made on making a router table insert for my table saw, and as you will have seen in the video, my outer sleeve for my palm router has completely smashed. Probably not the right type of router really to go in that hole, probably not powerful enough. The actual router is powerful enough, but obviously the collar there has completely shattered, so I've just managed to sort of wedge it on, you can see, just to finish that cut, but it looks like I'm going to be back to the drawing board and perhaps making yet another one of those. So I sort of rigged up a temporary solution just to get it to the right depth to finish the cut, and I have to be fair, when I turned it over, you couldn't actually see where, you can probably see there, you couldn't actually see where it had snapped, so I was happy about that, but again, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board for that. So after that, this was the sort of divider compartment pieces of wood, which is going to divide the compartments for the individual batteries, because I wanted to put some individual battery storage in it as well. Then I did a dry fit, and again, just a little shout out to these Aldi corner holding cubes. They're really, really good, these. They're a little bit, they're not rigid, but they really are good at supporting pieces of wood whilst you make sure that they're all together. Here I'm just marking on the uprights the size that the compartment bits need to be. Then back to the table saw, and I took them all off. Took a couple of goes because there's a strip of wood that's on there which actually left off because I wanted to use the wood and I couldn't get the strip off. I'd glued it and it wouldn't come off, but I didn't think it mattered. It sort of added to the overall look really. So back to the dry fit, just giving everything a final check over just to make sure it fits all right before I went on to the next stage, which was joining it. And here you can see the sort of sides are slightly coming in and it doesn't look square. But when I did the final fit, I sort of adjusted that. It's not 100%, and you'll see from the finished product, it's not 100%, but it's good enough to go in my garage. The next thing I did, off camera, you can just see I put just a band of glue down the side, then I drilled some pilot holes and put some screws in. The first screws I put in went all the way in, too small a screw. So then I got a different set out, a larger screw, thicker screw, and I put that through. So I screwed it all together one side whilst it was being clamped because I really wanted to make sure that wood glue was setting. I also dabbed some CVA on here as well, just to speed it up. I don't often do that, but I'm going to be doing it a lot more after this video because it is amazing how quickly that glue can just hold it enough that it's rigid enough to do what you need to do. So I stuck on the bottom, I stuck the top one on then. When it was nice and level, it was slightly easier doing it this way. And then I put them in and just put that one on the right hand side there, even though it's not holding for a piece of wood, to obviously keep it level. But as you can see, good shout out for those little clamps from Aldi. They're brilliant, and I'll put them in a future video when they're in the special buys. So it was all screwed up and it was all tightly done. The next stage was to put in this back brace, which the electronics are going to go one side and the compartment dividers are going to go the other. So I offered it up. I put in the first wedge, the sort of template that I made earlier. and everything fitted, and then I put the second bit on, the sort of outside template. Slight gap you can see there, but I managed to persuade that in and it isn't too bad now. Then I put in the individual dividers, and yes, I know the first divider, I know it's not 100% straight, and the second one isn't, but I actually did level that up a little bit when I put the nails in, so it doesn't look as wonky. It's a little bit wonky, but you know, it's not a retail grade product and it's not going in my lounge for everybody to see. It's a functional device that's going in the garage, so I'm not too worried about how it looks. Those compartments do the job, which is store the batteries. I then laid out my batteries again, put on the template on the top, and as you can see this time, the sort of wood looks like it's bowing out a little bit there. But when I pulled it in at the back, it all fitted. Then I got a little back piece to put on. I actually put some wood glue and CVA on this, and the CVA went mad and ran everywhere, so it looked a little bit wet, but I am going to paint this at some point. I'm going to paint all the sort of bare MDF. I might spray it even, just to get it right. But when it was all there, offered it up, connected it, and then I connected all of those compartments using my air gun nailer. I had a tiny little accident here that you probably won't see, but when I went to nail it, one of the random nails shot straight out and whistled past my head, which is a good reminder for wearing PPE, because earlier on when I was using the table router, I didn't have my my ventilator on, which I should have done. So when all that was done, it was all finished. I just tacked in some more pins to hold it, some more brad nails, and the bit at the back is deliberately loose. The last thing to do was just put a little strip in, just got some brad nails there, tried to put it in, didn't work. So then I went to screw, pilot hold, and put some very small screws in, just to sort of keep that strip. And that strip has no function apart from making it look slightly better. Not that it does, but that's what it's there for. And again, it will look better when it's painted. So when all those were done and I'd fixed in all the little screws, you can see it pretty much looks finished there. And now the last job was to tackle the back. So I had an extension lead, which I'd bought to use on a previous job and didn't. I got all the cables laid out, and then I just bunched them all together. And because most of these devices are new, they've still got the folds. You can see the cable folds in them, which makes it a bit easier. So I've banded them all together, cable tied them, and then just plugged them in the slots on the back. I'm glad I fast forwarded this bit because it took forever when I did it. So I wanted to make sure the cables were all sort of pushed inside, so nothing was hanging out. I was going to cut some slots for the cables to drop down, but to be honest, I just don't need them. And I didn't want to put anything else in the back. I'd sort of done enough of the cutting by now. So as I said, there are 5 chargers that are in there. Pop them all through. They all fit in, no problem. So I was very pleased with that all working. And then I, without exposing my backside, I then put it in place, put all the batteries in it, and as you can see, all nicely laid out. Not too big a gap, nothing's moving anywhere, easy to get the batteries in and batteries out. So overall, really, really pleased with the final product. Okay, so this is the finished station. As you can see, it looks a bit rough, I'll admit that, but it is actually exactly how I imagined it being when I thought about doing this project. So it is a little bit rough, but I am going to paint it, and I think after that it'll look a lot better. I think in terms of use, it's got all of the main battery holders in. Obviously, when I planned this in my mind, I didn't know the exact size it was going to be because of the size of the chargers. They're quite nicely spaced out. They're not all pushed in together, and there's plenty of space at the back for the cables. So overall, sort of out of 10, I think it's a good solid 7, maybe 8. And it's going to be very functional for me. I had a gap here in the workbench, which I just kept dumping stuff on, so at least having this here is going to stop me doing that. It is exactly as I wanted it to be. It charges all of my main batteries, so overall, really pleased with how it's turned out. If this is the first time at the Garage Workshop, then please hit the subscribe button and look through my older videos. I've got quite a few videos on there now. If you're a regular viewer, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like and comment and hit the notification bell. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I'll catch you next week on the Garage Workshop. Happy woodworking, everyone!